Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be learning how to draft a COWL kimono and a long shirt. Okay, just like you see on the thumbnail. So I went ahead to fold my fabric into four. I'm going to cut the front and the back together. I folded into two first, okay, and I folded it again into four. So this is 3.5 yards of fabric and it's 60 inches by length. Okay, so I folded it into four. So I'm going to be cutting the front and the back piece together. All right, so let's get started. Please note that this area is on fold. That's where the arrow is pointing at, is on fold. So I'm going to get the length of my sleeve. I want my sleeve to be about 3/4, okay, in length. So the thing I did was to measure my shoulder. My shoulder is 7.5 inches. I measured my shoulder, and then from that marked line, I'm going to measure the length of my sleeve, okay. So I measured the length of my sleeve. I measured 15 inches. So I want it 3/4. Measured 15 and I added 1 inch seam allowance, okay. So the next thing I did was to make my 1 inch shoulder slope, okay. Then I connected it like so. Okay, connected it. Next thing I did was to mark my knee measurement from my shoulder, okay. The measurement of the knee is 25 inches from the shoulder slope, okay, but I'm going to add 5 inches to it to make it 30 because I want my cowl to drip, okay, to drip very well, to drip, just to drip beneath my knee, kind of. I don't know if you understand. I added 5 inches to the 25 to make it 30, okay. So I marked 30 on my cowl. Okay, then to measure the width of the width, that is the circumference of my hip, okay. I'm going to mark my hip on that my knee that I measured, and I then added 1 inch seam allowance, and I added an extra 3 inches, okay. This is for ease, okay. This is a free kimono, you don't want it to be tight, okay. So in total I had 14 there, so I'm going to bring down that 14 I have on my hip to my hemline. Whatever it is you have on your hip, you bring it down to your hemline and connect it with a straight line, okay. So I just connected it like this, okay. So this is what you will have. The next thing I want to do is to make a curve down to that area, okay. Just freestyle it, okay. There's really no measurement for this, just make a curve to that area, and please, when you get to that point, you have to blend it, curve it slightly to avoid any pointiness, okay. Just curve it like I did, okay. So this is what you have, okay. I'm just going to make my line obvious, just like I'm doing. So the next thing I want to do now is to mark my neck width and my neck depth. So I marked a neck depth of 1 inch, 1 inch neck depth, and 3 inches neck width. Okay, marked my 3 inches neck width. Okay, then I connected it with a curve. So the next thing I want to do is to cut it out. Okay, then cut my shoulder area. Please note that when I was cutting, I cut ½ inch above my marked line. Okay, ½ inch above my marked line. This is for seam allowance, so as to join that area. I'm just going to cut all the way down to my hemline like I'm doing. So I was done cutting and this is what I have. So I'm going to mark my armhole. I marked an armhole of 8 inches from my shoulder slope. Okay, this is where my hand is going to come out from. Then I'm going to notch it. Notched it like so. Okay. The next thing I did was I opened this. I opened one piece. Okay, just opened it like I did. Then I brought out the back. More like I shifted it outwards. Okay, and then I put back my front piece back together so I can make my so I can make the neck line for the front. And I marked a V-shaped neckline for the front. I measured 8 inches from the shoulder and I marked it. Okay, then I connected it like I'm doing. Then I blended it down. Okay, blended it like so. I'm going to cut that off. I cut it off. Okay, and then I cut open my center front. I cut my center front open. Okay, like I am doing. Please guys, you can follow me on Instagram at nestclothing_, and please subscribe if you enjoy watching my videos. Okay, so here you have to make sure that the back piece is not in the way so you don't mistakenly cut it. So I went ahead to just bring it out a little bit and I continue to cut open my front, the center piece of my front. Okay, so I was done cutting. And here is what I have. This is the back, then this is the front. Open it up like this. Can you see the V-shaped? So you're going to pipe that area, okay, or you hem it, or you can join another fabric to it, just as you like. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to cut the shirt, the long shirt. These are the measurements I've been needing. I've already folded my fabric, and to get the exact amount of fabric to fold, you're going to measure the largest parts of your measurement, which is my hip divided by 4 plus 3 inches. Okay, 1.5 inches seam allowance and 1.5 ease allowance. Okay, so I went ahead to mark my starting point, which is my shoulder line. Okay, and the next thing I did was to mark my full length. Mark your full length. Okay, so I've already marked my full length. Then The next thing is to mark my shoulder. Marked shoulder of 7.5, okay, and I added ½ inch seam allowance. Then I marked my bust line of 8 inches from my shoulder line, okay. Then my waist 17 inches from my shoulder line, and then from my waist to my knee is 9 inches, okay. So that's my shoulder line, my bust line, my waist, and my hip, okay. So I'm going to add my circumferences. So I just extended that line to meet my bust line, okay. Then I'm going to make my armhole curve like I did. So the next is to add my circumferences, okay. So I'm going to measure my bust, and I added 1.5-inch ease allowance. This is a shirt, you don't want it to be tight, okay. And then I added 1.5-inch seam allowance. So in total I added 3 inches allowance, okay. I'm going to do the same thing for the waist. I measured my waist and I added 3 inches for the same allowance. That is 1.5 ease allowance, 1.5 seam allowance. Same thing for my hip. I added 3 inches allowance, okay. So I'm going to connect the lines like so. So I'm going to measure what I have on my hip, okay. I had 14 inches there, so I'm going to bring that 14 inches down to my hem, okay, and measure it, okay. So whatever you have on your hip, you take it down to your hem and connect with a straight line like I did. So the next is to mark my neck width and my neck depth. I marked a neck width of 3 inches. Please guys, I made a mistake here. I'm supposed to mark 1 inch neck depth for my back. Please guys, don't make the same mistake, okay. You have to mark 1 inch neck depth for your back, okay. And then I went ahead to add my allowances. Then I marked 1 inch for my shoulder slope and connected it. And then I also added my seam allowance of ½ inch. Please remember to measure 1 inch for your neck depth instead of 3. I'm going to correct that when I'm stitching, okay. So I went ahead to cut. I cut it, okay. So here is what we have. I'm going to place this on another folded pattern to cut the front. So I folded another pattern, another fabric rather, okay, and I added 2.5 inch for my button allowance, okay. So I'm going to open my back, place it on another pattern like so, open it up, okay, and I'll use it to cut the front, okay. So on the folded area, remember to leave 2.5 button allowance, okay. So here I was measuring to be sure that my button allowance is equal from top to bottom. Yes, I was measuring to be sure that I have everything is equal. That's 2.5 inches button allowance. So I have my 2.5 inches on the folded area for the button allowance for my front piece, okay. So I'm going to cut it out. Okay, so for the front I measured 3 by 3. Okay, 3 by 3, 3 inches width, 3 inches depth. But for the back it's supposed to be 1 inch depth. Remember that, guys, please. So I went ahead to cut my fabric like so. Cut, cut, cut. Okay, the next thing I did was to notch my button allowance. Okay, I notched on the hem and on the top like so. This is so you don't fold more than you should. Okay, more like a guide. So the next thing I do is to open up my center front like I'm doing. Open your center front like so. So I was done cutting and this is what I have. So guys, this is the end of this tutorial. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.